Well, hi, this is Lindsay Blue, and you're listening to TV Confidential.
Ed Robertson welcoming you back to TV Confidential, radio talk show about television. They'll play part 2 of a conversation that we began just before the holidays with Nick Nugent. Nick Nugent, author of The Knight Rider Companion, abridged edition, everything you want to know and more about the classic TV series starring David Hasselhoff, Edward Mulhare, and the voice of William Daniels that series creator Glenn Larson originally saw as an updated version of The Lone Ranger. The Knight Rider Companion abridged edition available from our friends at Black Pond Press. You can also find it at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, where books are sold online. It's fun. One of the fun things about reading a book like yours today is you could take out your phone, speaking of modern day technology, and you can call up video clips of the show that you're writing about, and which kind of enhances the reading experience because it's interactive in that way. But the fun thing is just taking the basic concept of a car that talks as you're driving or operating it. It's fun watching the early clips, like the clip of the first time Michael realizes that there's a built-in talking computer in the car. He's like kind of amused. It's like, am I hallucinating here? And yet we take for granted calling up Alexa, calling up Siri. How do I get to Hollywood and Vine?
Oh, yeah, GPS, definitely. In fact, GPS systems actually have the Hoff voice and William Daniels voice that guides you to destinations these days.
Very, very much so. It is easy to interchange Kit, the computer system, from the car itself, but Larson was always very clear to distinguish that Kit and the car are two different entities.
Well, much to his chagrin, everyone pretty much just calls it the Kit car or the Knight Rider car.
Yeah.
Which, I understand why, because it's like I said before, William Daniels was the soul of Kit, and the car was the costume. Kit was very much a character. It wasn't just a tool for Michael to solve missions and help the innocent, the helpless, and the powerless in a world of criminals who operate above the law. He was a companion. He was Michael's trigger, as Glenn used to say in his interviews when asked about Michael and Kit's relationship, and that Knight Rider was essentially in his mind an updated version of the Lone Ranger, and you get that sense of a guy and his horse. Although I thought it was pretty funny when I think it was Family Guy poked fun at, Rick and Morty poked fun at Knight Rider and said, "Why is it called Knight Rider? The guy doesn't ride the car." But that just shows like the cultural impact. And part of my book, it's in the back, is a very detailed special guest and appearance guide. It includes every reference to Knight Rider in TV shows, video games, some commercials, movies, as well as mentions of Knight Rider. It really gives you a broad canvas and an easy-to-reference guide to see how much impact Knight Rider has had on pop culture, especially 80s pop culture today. And with everything feeling old is new again, retro and nostalgia is in. It is a very lucrative collector's market.
Very, very much so. I'd forgotten about this until I read I read your interviews with Glenn Larson in the Knight Rider Companion abridged edition, Nick. There's a direct line, kind of sort of, between Knight Rider and a show from the 60s called My Mother the Car. Now, the interesting thing is, and you tell me if I got this wrong, in one of the interviews, I think Glenn said he was averse to the concept because he immediately thought of My Mother the Car, which was one of the most ridiculed shows ever done television. And yet in another interview, he seemed to embrace the idea of taking that concept and making it even better.
You're correct. He was at first hesitant because of the reaction that the show got. Certainly the network was also hesitant to the idea. He actually had to sell the network on the idea of how he wanted to approach a talking car and how it would be completely different from My Mother the Car, which if I'm not mistaken, involved the main character's mother dying and her soul basically inhabiting the car.
Yeah, she was reincarnated as the engine or the radio of the car.
Okay, yeah, I was a bit before my time.
Yeah. Well, but one of the reasons why that show failed is that beyond the gimmick, there really wasn't much you can do with the concept. Whereas if you put that concept in an action adventure sequence, as Larson did with Knight Rider, and make it part of a premise where he's relying on this vehicle and all the components in the vehicle, and the character, like Hal in 2001: A Space Odyssey, takes an interest in him. And so that is where it becomes a relationship between maybe not man and car, but the artificial intelligence behind the car, which is ultimately there to help Michael navigate whatever situation he has to navigate from week to week.
Well, I think an episode like Soul Survivor, for instance, really drives home the idea that Kit has a soul. It's a soul of silicone, but it's still a soul.
Mm-hmm.
And he has the ability to learn, which is what set him apart from Hal. Hal could learn a little bit, but he was very kind of a distant AI, sort of like Mother in Alien. He just controls the ship.
Mm-hmm.
Kit was able to offer advice and adapt to different situations, and both Michael and Kit learned off each other. It was such a unique relationship at the time, and then absurd at the same time, because cars can't talk, cars can't. You can drive through gunfire or leap through traffic at the push of a single button. But here was Kit. You know, we saw leaping cars before with the Dukes of Hazzard, but we never saw it in a sleek sci-fi type setting. And that's the whole idea of the futuristic, sleek and polished look, the Christmas tree light kind of dash design that Michael Chaffee brought, and then Kit's iconic red scanner, which was influenced by Cylons or Battlestar Galactica. So again, like the future being brought into modern day, it's such a fascinating concept, because we as human beings, we dream and aspire to get to that next level, to take technology and improve our lives. It's how we end up with like iPads and cell phones now. I mean, people like me and you, we grew up in a time when we didn't have the internet at its best. We didn't have cell phones and tablets at its best. We had the cord phones, and then we kind of migrated into cordless phones, but they were very, very basic. So we have that luxury, but audiences today, like, it's amazing how much technology has improved, and I would credit the idea of Knight Rider as being part of that evolution.
The Knight Rider Companion, Original Edition by Nick Nugent, available from our friend Black Pond Press. You can also find it at Amazon.com, BarnesNoble.com, where books are sold online. Stay with us, folks. We'll be right back. One more item. Are you starting a company in an emerging market or developing something new? Do you have intellectual property but aren't sure how to protect it? Reach out to our friends at Tectonic Law. They offer rock-solid representation for groundbreaking industries who need help capturing and protecting their full portfolio of intellectual property and intangible assets, including trademark rights, brand assets, copyright rights, publicity rights, and privacy rights. Tectonic Law streamlines the complex intricacies of intellectual property and business law in easy-to-understand terms that will help you and your company form a concrete plan of action to secure and protect the value of your brand and your creative work product. Tectonic Law is licensed to practice throughout the state of California. They also practice before such tribunals as the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office and the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. Go to tectoniclaw.com, tectoniclaw.com, to learn more about how Tectonic Law can help your business thrive. tectoniclaw.com. Rock-solid representation for groundbreaking industries.
This portion of TV Confidential is brought to us by our friends at Front Porch Realty, the community of realtors in the Northern Bay area of California that is committed to finding the solution that is best for their clients. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or looking to sell or lease your property in Northern California, call Karen Strain at 415-886-7411 or visit frontporchrealtygroup.com for more information on how they can help you.
This is apropos of nothing, but I was thinking about this as you talk about the physical body of the car itself, which is a Pontiac Trans Am. I'm not a car guy, but when I know about the Trans Am, it was sort of like a luxury, at its time, it was like a luxury supercar, where it could go really fast. It could go 0 to 60 or 0 to 90 in a heartbeat. And the only thing I know about the Trans Am, Nick, is when they were deciding which car Jim Rockford had, they decided to take the body of a Firebird, which is a car that Rockford could afford, but they gave Rockford's Firebird all the components of a Trans Am because that would work in terms of all the action that Jim had to do on that show from week to week. It was a Firebird with the heart and soul of a Trans Am. And I thought, and so you take the idea of the luxury supercar with the Trans Am, and they took it to the next level when they used it as the basis for Knight Rider.
Glenn had seen I think, prototype drawings of the Trans Am when it was still in development, and through John Chanella, who was the designer at GM at Pontiac, I think, at the time. I'm old. This is why I put it all in a book.
That's okay.
So he had a rough idea of what the car was going to be, and he fell in love with it right away. And he arranged through a company called the Vista Group to get a hold of the first 3 Trans Ams off the production line, which were immediately shipped to Universal and then given to the art department, Michael Chaffee and John Ward. John Ward created the original pilot nose on KITT, which had an elongated hood, which didn't last too long, but you can see it in a couple scenes in the pilot, which was at the time the 2-hour movie. But then Michael Chaffee was asked to kind of do an improvement on the nose. So John did the nose, but Michael Chaffee and his team did the rest. He designed the dash, he designed all the instrument panels, the gullwing, the signature gullwing, steering wheel. The inside of KITT was designed to be like the flight controls of an airplane or a jet engine. And KITT even had a turbine engine which powered the car, which mysteriously we never got any extensive details about, but we knew that KITT's technology was classified and built by Knight Industries, as well as all those like James Bond features, which was really the selling point of the car. Glenn was a very huge fan of Ian Fleming and the James Bond movies, and it fascinated him when James would use like the special features of the DB5, for instance, from Goldfinger. It's like the bulletproof shield and the GPS and the tire shredders and those sort of features. But KITT was designed to preserve human life, so KITT was actually given defensive features rather than offensive features. So, like repelling gunfire, it had a special protection alloy called the molecular bonded shell, which covered the entire car and made it nearly impervious to gunfire, crashing through walls, and other threats. It also had microjam, which could jam electronic computers. It could manipulate handcuffs and other devices that the bad guys used to try to bring Michael and KITT down. There was so many great, memorable features of KITT that still resonate with audiences today.
Before I forget, I want to talk a little bit about Glenn's background in music. I did not know this until very recently. In addition to his skills as a producer and his vast body of work as a producer in television, he also had a pretty good background in music, and he composed the music for a number of his shows. And I don't remember whether the theme for Knight Rider is an original composition of Glenn's, but he had a hand in the music on that show, did he not?
Okay. There's 2 schools of thought on this. When I interviewed Stu Phillips for the first book, that's the Knight Rider Companion, which was a full-color 680-page guidebook to the series, which is now out of print, which is why I put the abridged edition, so that people can get the book again with additional material and stuff in it. He denies that Bacchus, which was, I forget the entire name of it, but it was used in a Russian ballet, I believe, some kind of Cinderella thing, was the basis for the Knight Rider theme. He has since changed his position on that currently. So I think that it would be fair to say that Bacchus did in fact influence the Knight Rider theme, but it is not the entirety of the Knight Rider theme. It's like a starting point. And I wouldn't go as far as to say it ripped off, this very old classic piece of music. But I would say that it definitely inspired the melody that would become so iconic, to the fact that it even became the #1 ringtone at one point. As far as Glenn goes, when I interviewed Stu, he had a different story. He's telling a different story today. It is my belief, according to Glenn, that Glenn and Stu both co-created the Knight Rider theme, which is just called the main theme.
Mm-hmm.
And Stu did most of the instrumental, and Glenn did the composition. I think it was a 50-50 effort. That's why they're both credited together on the score, pretty much any time it's played in a movie or TV show. But again, there is some truth to it. I would not dispute that Bacchus was an influence. It's pretty hard to deny the similarities in tone. But I think they took something that was great and they made something even better. And a lot of artists today, especially rap music or whatever, they'll use a melody or a hook from an older song and make a new and improved spin on it. That's how I look at it. I think Knight Rider became its own thing.
Well, as the saying goes, failure is an orphan, success has many fathers. And the trick for someone such as you, Nick, when you're putting together the history of a phenomenon such as Knight Rider, is taking, the various sides of the story, because usually the truth is somewhere between Stu Phillips's recollection, just to use an example, and Glenn's, and or whoever are the parties involved. The truth is somewhere in the middle.
That's true for many situations. I mean, I wasn't there, so I can't say definitively one way or the other. I just have to take people's word at it. It's called Forget de Bacchus by Leo Delibes. It was made in somewhere between 1836 and 1891. So anyone who wants to find that original piece of music, you can find it on YouTube very easily. Just type in Cortege de Bacchus, Bacchus, and you'll find it.
And if you want to pick up a copy of the Knight Rider Companion, abridged edition by Nick Nugent, you can find that at Black Pond Press as well as Amazon.com, where books are sold online. We'll take a quick time out. We'll talk some more with Nick Nugent when we come back on TV Confidential.